They buried him before he died. He fell, not into death, but into the mouth of the earth itself. Kara was 14 when the earth swallowed him. He was small for his age, but fast, light on his feet, a silent shadow among the trees. The elders said he would make a good tracker, maybe even a whisper hunter, one of those rare few who could touch the ground and hear what the herds whispered days ahead. But Kara wasn't interested in game trails. He wanted to be like his sister, Solma, the one with the hawk's eyes, the one who never missed with her spear. She had died a year ago, during the winter migration. He said it was an accident that the ice gave way beneath her. But Kara had seen the wound, deep, sharp, clean. Ice didn't leave cuts like that. He never spoke of it, never asked. That morning, the air tasted of rain and rock. Kara walked with the foragers, carrying baskets for roots and eggs. The sky was cracked with gray clouds, and the wind came from the east, strange and warm, like breath from the deep ground. Then the birds stopped. No warning, no sound, just stillness. Kara turned, his feet rooted in place. A low groan rose from the earth, like something old waking beneath the soil. The others shouted. One woman screamed. The ground rippled, cracked, and then it split. Kara had time to lock eyes with his cousin Rohan, whose mouth opened to shout something, but he never heard it, because the world fell away beneath him. The sensation wasn't like falling from a tree or tripping into a river. It was longer, slower, like being pulled by something heavy and invisible. He struck stone, felt a rib snap, slid down what felt like teeth made of wet rock. Then nothing. Darkness. Kara's first thought was that he'd gone blind. His second was that he was dead. But death didn't hurt. His side throbbed. His lip was split. His fingers trembled as they scraped along stone. Cold, damp, real. He tried to call out, but the sound died before it reached the air. The silence was too thick, too deep. He pushed himself up, barely able to stand. His ankles screamed. Above him, no light, no crack in the earth, only stone ceiling, jagged and dripping. The earth had closed, buried him whole. He should have panicked. But instead, a sound reached him. A breath, soft, familiar. It came not through his ears, but inside his skull. Whisper Kara. His blood turned cold. Solma, he whispered, not meaning to speak. No answer, but he felt it. Like her presence had walked across his skin. He pressed his hand against the wall. Rough, pitted, alive with moisture. Somewhere far off, water dripped. His hand brushed over something carved ancient scratches. Symbols, he didn't understand them, but they felt human. He wasn't the first to fall, and maybe he wouldn't be the last. He sat down, curling into himself, the pain in his ribs sharp with every breath. I'm not dead, he whispered. The echo did not return his words. They buried him before he died. But Kara's story was not over. It had only just begun beneath the teeth of the world. Great, here's part 2 of Under the Teeth of the World, written in the same cinematic, reflective, and emotional tone. This section continues Kara's descent into the unknown and the beginning of his transformation. Part 2. Echoes and shadows. There were no days anymore, only moments. Moments of pain, hunger, cold, silence. Kara had no words for where he was. The world he knew, the rustling trees, the warmth of sun on his back, the smoke of the hearth had been wiped away. Down here, everything was stone, water, and breath, slow, wet, watching. He counted time in heartbeats, in the pattern of drips from above. In the length of his own breaths, he slept when the exhaustion crushed him. Woke in fear, unsure if hours or whole seasons had passed. He dreamed of warmth and awoke to bone-deep cold. But his body would not die. It clung to life like a root on a cliff. He learned the shape of the place by crawling. The ground sloped gently, curving in spirals. Walls rose like jaws. The air grew thicker, then thinner, then thick again. Once his fingers brushed across something soft. Hair, a skull. He didn't scream, he just moved on. On the third waking at least he thought it was the third, he found water. It pooled in a dip in the stone, fed by a thin trickle from the wall. He drank slowly, trembling with relief. The water tasted like iron and ash, but it was life. That night, the whisper came again. Kara. He pressed his palms to his ears. No, he hissed into the dark. You're not real. The voice didn't argue. It only hummed. The sound lived behind his eyes. It wasn't Salma's voice exactly, but it wasn't anyone else's either. It had her tone, her calm, her rhythm when she used to soothe him during storms. Kara, it said again, stand up. He did not because he believed, because it gave the silence something to break. He began to move with purpose, blind but not lost. He dragged a shard of bone from the skull he found earlier and used it as a tool, tapping walls as he walked. Every sound gave him distance, shape, space. Like a bat, he stopped stumbling. And then he began marking. He scratched lines into the wall every time he woke. Not days, not nights, just wakes. He had marked 7 when he found the tunnel. It was narrower, and the air moved differently, lightly warmer, with the faintest breeze. Followed it on hands and knees, squeezing through tight turns, bruising his shoulders. It felt alive, like crawling through the throat of some buried beast. At one point, the floor disappeared beneath him. He dropped, not far, just enough to land hard. His ankle twisted. He screamed. But the cave didn't echo. It swallowed his voice, like everything else. Later, much later, when the pain dulled, he began to carve again. This time not lines, symbols, a hand, a circle, a jagged shape for the fall. A new mark for himself, a curled figure with a break at the foot. His story, etched in the bone of the earth. If someone found it, they'd know he was here, that someone fell, that someone lived, that someone remembered. He dreamed again, but not of Solma. This time he dreamed of a face with no eyes, leaning over him, mouth full of moss, whispering in a voice like breath through leaves. The world above forgets. The world below remembers. He woke shaking. The whisper was gone, but he felt watched, not from behind, from within. There is a kind of silence that isn't empty. Silence so full it presses against your skin, watches you, breathes with you. Kara felt that silence now. Began as a weight behind his shoulders, an instinct, kind that made prey animals freeze in the grass when nothing moved. But something watched, ignored it at first, until he heard it. A footfall, soft, wrong. He had no words for it, no stories to explain it. His people didn't speak of what lived beneath. They spoke of sky spirits, of fire gods, of the watchers among the trees. But not this. This wasn't spirit. This was bone and breath. Something that waited. Kara pressed his hand against the wall and held his breath. The silence was no longer still. It was waiting for him to move. He crawled slowly, deliberately, dragging his twisted ankle, chewing bark from a root he'd found near a dripping alcove. The air around him shifted. The hair on his arms rose. Then came the sound. Breath. Long, wet, close. Not a growl, not a roar. Just breath, like something that had been asleep for 1,000 winters and now stirred. He turned. Saw nothing. Only blackness, thick as ash. But the breath continued. And then a scrape, claws against stone. It was following. He ran, fell, crawled, pulled himself through a passage too narrow for anything larger than a dog. His ribs screamed, his hands bled. Behind him, nothing. But he could feel it, not chasing, just walking, slowly, patiently. It wasn't in a hurry. It had nowhere else to be. He reached a cavern by accident. A wide, open chamber where sound finally returned. Water lapped at stone. Somewhere high above, a thin crack led in the faintest, coldest light Kara had seen in months. A miracle, he laughed. Choked, stumbled to the water and drank, and behind him, a shape emerged from the tunnel. It was not a bear, not fully. It was larger, misshapen, with a hunched back and pale skin that shimmered like wet bone. It had no eyes, just a snout, nostrils flaring, teeth too long for any hunter's tail. It did not roar, it did not charge, it simply stood there, breathing. Kara's blood turned to ice. He reached for anything, a rock, a stick, the bone shard. The creature stepped forward, soundless, backed away, ankle failing him, dragging himself across the floor. And then the thing sniffed the air and turned. It walked away. Kara didn't understand. He should have died, but something had changed. The beast hadn't seen him, couldn't see him. It moved by scent, by sound. He had been so still, so silent. It hadn't noticed. Or worse, it had, and let him live. After hours, days, he dared return to where the creature had stood. He found no blood, but something else lay near the water's edge. A flake of stone, strange, smooth, shaped like a star with broken points. Not natural, a tool, a talisman, made by a hand long dead. Kara held it tight. It warmed in his palm. He tied it to his wrist with a thread of root. He would follow the wind again. But he would not forget the breath behind him. And he would not forget the world below was not empty. The world beneath him had changed. Or maybe he had. Kara no longer moved like a boy. He had forgotten what light looked like, forgotten how his name sounded in the open air. His ribs had healed into strange shapes. His hands were calloused and hard. His eyes, though still blind in the dark, now saw with other senses. His ears had grown sharp. His skin felt the movement of air like whispers. And always, always, the voice returned. Not nightly, but not always. But when he began to lose direction, it came, Kara. The breath moves. Follow it. He learned to listen. To the breath of stone, where the air was colder, tunnels shrank. Where it warmed, water trickled. But when it turned thin and dry, when it almost vibrated against the skin, that's where he went. The passages narrowed, winding like veins. And then they opened. It was not a cavern. It was a hall. Long, wide. Still the walls were carved with marks. Not scratches. Not animal claws. Not natural erosion. Paint, faded, ancient, red and black. Shapes of beasts with too many limbs, moons, eyes. Spirals that led inward and inward again. And hands, dozens, maybe hundreds. Hands of men, women, children, pressed against the rock like ghosts trying to hold on. Some had fingers missing. Some pointed inwards. Some were placed in circles. Kara stood in the middle and wept. He didn't know why, ran his fingers along the walls. The paint flaked in places, but the story remained. It was a memory, a warning, map. At the far end, beneath a collapsed slab of rock, he found another mark, etched into the stone like a brand, a star. Just like the one tied to his wrist, only this one had 9 points. And inside each point, a different symbol. Fire, water, bone, claw, eye, void, wind, blood. Silence. He didn't know what it meant, but it felt familiar. That night, or what passed for night, Kara dreamed again. Not of Solma, not of the beast. He dreamed of light. But not from above, from within. A cave full of stars. Not in the sky, but pressed into stone, as if the earth itself remembered the constellations of long ago. When he woke, he whispered to the wall, "I am one of you now." His hunger faded, his thirst lessened. He ate when he had to, slept when the wind told him to. His body ached less, or perhaps he had stopped noticing. He carved again. On the wall of the star. I was not buried. I was sent. Then he found the breeze again, faint, distant, but real. The world had begun to exhale, followed it, slowly, quietly, knowing that the world beneath was not finished with him yet. The tunnel narrowed until he had to crawl. Stones scraped his back. His breath came in gasps. The wind grew colder, cleaner, and it no longer smelled of dust and rot, but of salt, moss, and something he had not felt in many moons. Sky. Kara pressed his face to the stone, heart pounding, and then light. Not a flame, and a glow, but light. He reached toward it, like a child waking from a fevered dream. The tunnel opened just wide enough for him to squeeze through shoulders, grinding against rock, roots scratching his skin. Then he tumbled out, onto grass, wet, bright, alive. The sky burned his eyes. Even through the clouds, the light was too much. stabbed into his head like knives. He rolled over and covered his face with trembling hands. The wind howled across a cliff. The scent of the sea slammed into him like a memory long buried. He wept, not with sorrow, but with noise. Everything made sound. The rustling grass, the distant call of gulls, the far-off crash of waves was deafening. The earth had taught him silence. Now the world screamed. He stood slowly. His legs were thinner, taller, stiffer. He moved like an old man, bent and cautious. He looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, cracked. He was not the boy who fell, not anymore. He followed the cliff inland. Days passed, marked by sun and dark. He could not sleep well beneath the sky, too open, too loud. He missed the hum of stone. Eventually he found people, not his people, but close. A village of huts, fires, children with soot on their cheeks. He stood at a distance. Watching, they stared back first in fear, then confusion. He must have looked like a ghost, wild-haired, half-naked, covered in dirt and lines of stone dust. A woman approached him. She spoke a dialect he almost understood. "Are you from the northern tribes?" He didn't answer. She led him to an elder and old man with pale eyes and a broken tooth. When Kara spoke his name, the elder frowned. "That name, I remember it. Long ago, a boy fell into the earth. He was never found. His mother grieved until her last breath." Kara said nothing. The elder squinted at him. "You cannot be him." Kara looked down at his hands again. "No," he said. They gave him food, a place to sleep, a wool blanket. He did not stay. That night, he sat on a hill outside the village, watching the stars. They looked different than in the cave. Farther, colder, he whispered to the sky, unsure if it still listened. "I came back," he said, "but the world I knew is gone." He untied the stone star from his wrist, held it in his palm, pressed it to the earth, and for the first time since he escaped the dark, he felt alone. The world above was loud, but in that noise, Kara found only emptiness. He wandered the forests and hills, silent and alone. The trees whispered in unfamiliar tongues. The rivers sang songs he no longer knew. The animals, once his companions, turned their heads and fled. He was a shadow in a world that had forgotten him. He sought faces like his own, old friends, kin. One dawn, the elder sought him out. "You carry the mark of the lost," the man said, eyes soft. "You survived what should have killed you." Kara nodded. "Then you belong to both worlds," the elder said. "Neither fully, but part of each." Kara closed his eyes. He felt the deep call, the cave, the silence, the breath beneath the earth. He was torn. Where do I belong when the world I knew is buried? Felt the stone talisman. He spoke aloud. "I can stay. I can live here." You must return." With a heavy heart, Kara turned away from the firelight, back toward the darkness beneath. Back at the cave's mouth, Kara paused. The world swallowed by stone awaited. But he no longer feared it. With the talisman in hand, he traced his story on the walls. Not just his survival,